Hey guys, today I wanted to do a book haul because once again I have gotten too many books, or just more books than I probably should have. And it was really funny when I got the pile of books together to go, oh, I know I bought a lot of books, because they're either nonfiction or they're YA. There is no in between. It's this really funny, put this book next to this book, and they just don't seem to go together. They don't fit on the shelf together, but they are on my shelf, and I thought that this would be a really good representation of everything that I'm reading right now, because some of these I have already read and reviewed, and some of them are upcoming, and some of them you won't see for a while. There is actually a YA arc in here that I have, so you can look forward to that. I am going to start with my history books just because there's more of them and some of them you've already seen. So we're going to start there. This is Alison Pataki's The Accidental Empress. If you recognize it from my What Makes Good Historical Fiction video, this is actually the first book. The second book in this series, Cece, an Empress on Her Own, appeared in the last book haul that I did. When I bought Cece, I didn't realize that there was a book that came first, and that is The Accidental Empress. I have finished this book, and you'll see a review coming when I actually finish Cece, so I can review the books together. But basically, Cece was an empress of Austria. She originally met the young Franz Joseph, the Emperor of Austria, when her sister went to, become his betrothed, and Franz Joseph actually fell in love with Cece instead of her sister, and they kind of defied convention to get married. But then their fairy tale did not go as planned, and she led really an interesting life, and I can't believe that this is the first time that I've heard of her, honestly. So yeah, look her up, look these books up, they're really good. I'm going to briefly discuss the next two books on my list because they're both by Dan Jones, and they're The Plantations and The War of the Roses. This is also very familiar because I just did a review of them and the documentaries that they're based on last week. So again, they're fairly straightforward. These are both nonfiction, one about the Plantations, one of the most interesting dynasties in British history, and then the War of the Roses and how the Tudors came to be. So both really good, concise snapshots of very poignant pieces of British history and very well written. And if you want to know more about them, please do see my review because I also talk about those documentaries, like I said, that they're based on. This giant of a book I actually just finished. I had to read it in a combination of the audiobook and the paper book because it was a lot to handle. And this is Simon Sebag Montefiore, I don't know how you say his name, book The Romanovs, 1613 to 1918. And this is a gigantic book about the entire Romanov dynasty of Russia, and I wanted to read this because I had not seen something that covered the entirety of the Romanov dynasty. I had seen stuff on Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, but I had never seen a book that took the whole dynasty as a moving whole, a succession of people and a succession of ideas and a succession of the evolution of Russia today. And so this showed up on our new paperback table, and I was like, mine. I have a lot of very interesting thoughts about this book, and you can look forward to that coming up soon because I'm going to be doing another books a documentary episode about it. This hasn't been made into a documentary per se, but I found something very similar on the YouTube, and I want to talk about that versus this and their similarities and differences because, again, I have a lot of thoughts about this, so you can look forward to that. I did like the Romanovs so much that when I was only maybe less than halfway through that book, I ordered Simon's other book, Catherine the Great and Potemkin, The Imperial Love Affair. And Potemkin is easily one of the best, smartest, most amazing courtiers and governors in Russia's history. His own life story and what he accomplished for Russia is really amazing, and coupled with Catherine the Great and their story, it makes for a lot of interesting detail. And what I was really looking for was a more in-depth look at Catherine the Great herself, although I did of course read the Catherine the Great biography that I reviewed last month, But this was about the both of them, what they accomplished for Russia, and also their relationship with each other, which was kind of crazy. So, yeah, I got this one. I haven't started it yet, but I look forward to it. This is a book that I just picked up to do another edition of my Books to Documentary series, and this is She-Wolves, The Women Who Ruled England Before Elizabeth by Helen Castor. I initially found the documentary on my Acorn TV account, also called She-Wolves, under the same name, and I knew once I watched that already, I wanted to know much more in detail about that documentary and the women who were mentioned in that documentary, because while my own British history obsessions have been with, you know, the War of the Roses, but mostly just the Tudors, I didn't know as much about the women that were featured in the documentary, and I knew that I wanted to read the book. So this book just came in, and I'm really excited because this is really my forte, like women in British history, man. It's what I'm all about. And then the last history book that I just picked up is kind of similar to the last one. It's Game of Queens, The Women Who Made 16th Century Europe. And while this does have some British queens in it, it also covers Isabella of Castile and Catherine de' Medici, and these big powerhouses of women that I don't really know that much about. And so I'm really excited to read this one eventually. Moving over to my YA picks, which are just, I mean, again, a pile of really crazy things that could not sit on the shelf really next to all these books. It doesn't make sense. But the first one is, of course, Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Dark Artifices series. And I had a lot of thoughts about Lady Midnight, the first book in this series, and I did do a review on that, so you can check that out. And to the point where I wasn't really that excited about starting this book, and it might be because I just wasn't as driven by the plot of Lady Midnight as I have been by her other books, and also just because I'm reading a lot of nonfiction. But hopefully I will get to this soon, and I will be able to review it for you guys to see what has changed between Lady Midnight and this, because I'm really, really curious to see where this series is going to go. This is one of the most recent books that I picked up, and it's Roar by Cora Carmack. And I saw it come in on the teen new release cart, and I went, man, I really need to read this. Just look at the cover. It's so pretty. It's about a girl who's becoming a queen to a country in a land where there's a lot of like dangerous elemental magic. And I was originally caught by the title. In a land ruled and shaped by violent magical storms, power lies with those who control them. And then I was like, ooh, is she like this big, you know, elemental magician? Like, what does she do? It's actually about her not having this super magical power, but her learning how to manage her own powers as a non-magical person, and to take control of her own fate. And so the last line of the part inside here is, she may not have magic now, but she could steal it if she's brave enough. And I love how this sounds about, there clearly is like a love triangle brewing in it, but I love that it sounds like something more about her driving her own fate. So I've heard some really different reviews on this, but hopefully you'll see my opinion soon. Illumini by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff came out in paperback a little while ago, and I knew without a doubt that I needed to pick this up. I love Jay Kristoff's work. I've never read much of Amy Kaufman, but when I saw the inside of this, I mean, it's one of the most interesting things I think I've ever seen written. It's something that does interesting things with text, and I'm really excited about it, to the point where this is actually when Bibliomancer for Beginners goes after our nonfiction rounds of picks. I've chosen this one as my next pick because I want to discuss it. I want to read it. I want to see what Michaela and Taylor think about it. Because I think that it's so cool. I think that it's one of the coolest books on the shelves right now. And I'm so, so excited to read it. And I did promise you an ARC, and there is one in here that I took off of the table that when we got that in, and here's why. Perfect for fantasy fans of Sarah J. Maas and Leigh Bardugo. The first book in this new duology features a compelling gender-fluid main character, impressive world building, and fast-paced action. sign me up so fast. And this book in question is Mask of Shadows by Lindsay Miller, and it looks amazing and it sounds amazing, and literally all you had to do was say "for fans of Sarah J Maas," and I picked it up because I'm crazy. I haven't started reading this yet. I think it's out at the end of August, so while you won't be seeing a review of this one for a little while, I'm so excited. If this is half as good as the back of it sounds, it's gonna be amazing and a really, really cool, awesome, big deal for me. So I literally, when it showed up in Barnes & Noble, went, "Mine!" And I like grabbed it and put it in my bag before I really even read a lot of it. So really excited for this, and you can look forward to this in August. But hopefully you will see what my thoughts are soon. That is all I have for you guys today. Hopefully some of that made sense. I know that book hauls sometimes can drag on a while when there's a lot of books, so I tried to get through those really, really fast. So if you have any other questions or have read some of them and want me to, slide them up or down my list, or if you want to know more about the historical details of some of the history books that I read, whatever, just drop me a line down in the comments. And otherwise, I will see you guys next week. Bye!